Hello everybody, this is the Vikstrand. Iron Man is being looked at by, most Marvel fanatics as one of the best comic book movies of all time. It's being looked at as an absolute modern classic and everybody loved it. It was an absolute monster hit when it came out. Even eclipsing, I think it was Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, mostly because that movie kind of sucked. However, few people I think that Iron Man 2 is better than the first one, and I agree with them. It is my least favorite of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I will, tell you all about it in a second, but first also I gotta get this off my chest. I don't think that Iron Man is either my favorite Avenger of all time, it's not my favorite character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I don't think that Iron Man is such a fantastic movie. It's a really good movie and a fantastic 2 acts and a pretty, so-and-so 3rd act. But it is a really good movie. Fun fact, when in the finale Tony Stark announced that he was Iron Man and then he go dan 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 dan, I actually thought that meant that they did that so they couldn't make any sequels to it, by ousting that he was Iron Man. That should probably tell you how much I know about the lore of Iron Man and how much I know about, the Marvel Cinematic Universe that was going to come out. I didn't even stick around for the post-credit sequence, which I didn't know existed until, somebody told me. And it was the same person who told me, well, they're going to do this multi-picture thing with, the Avengers. Who are the Avengers, I thought. What an idiot he must have thought I was. Jesus Christ. I must have sounded like a complete goof. Anyway, the movie we're gonna take a look at today is of course Iron Man 2. And let's take a look why this movie, in my opinion, is the least good movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that has ever been. Hit the intro! Tony Stark is now back and he is, officially Iron Man. But Tony Stark is also growing impatient and he's growing a little bit too rambunctious and a little bit too unsavory for maybe everybody's sake. And now we take place in the Monaco Grand Prix, and arguably the coolest thing in the entire movie takes place because Whiplash, a enemy from the past with these electric whips, is whipping the shit out of Iron Man and the other participants in the race. So is Tony Stark going to be able to confront this super villain that has now come, or will his impending alcoholism and midlife crisis put an end to Iron Man as we know it? Will he be able to join the Avengers? Because as Nick Fury puts it, Iron Man as a entity is good enough for the Avengers, but Tony Stark is considered too out of control and stuff like that. So will Tony Stark be able to reinvent himself and defeat this new menace? He also has another rival in the form of Hammer, aka Sam Rockwell. Oh, Sam Rockwell! This should be great, right? Who is, coming in and, trying to compete with Stark Industries. And is he going to be able to defeat good old Hammer here? And will he be able to patch up things with War Machine, who is now played by Don Cheadle, which I think is an improvement. Terrence Howard is an okay actor, but I really like Don Cheadle as an actor a lot more. Then of course we have the newest employee of Stark Industries, Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, aka Scarlett Johansson, by the way, in my opinion, the hottest version of Scarlett Johansson ever, and that's covering a lot of fucking grounds, doesn't it? Anyway, will Iron Man be able to get his act together, or will he be a more disheveled version of Tony Stark that just, does stuff like pissing in the Iron Man suit and stuff like that? And will he be able to save the people from the evil machinations of Hammer and Whiplash? We'll see. The problem with this movie is the fact that this is almost like a trailer in of itself for that the Avengers is coming in, 2 years time from now on. Are you not entertained? So there's a lot of things that are sidelined from here. The plot of the movie, Tony Stark as Iron Man, the villain is sort of tossed to the sideline, and Mickey Rourke fails to make a really huge impression, you know, as Whiplash, sidelining himself and becoming the first, but certainly not the last of the underwhelming villains in the history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because after the initial fantastic sequence in Monaco, up until the big finale with the robots that are attacking, not a lot happens, and most of it is bad. And it's just not that interesting. The best thing is, of course, Black Widow's ass kickery, but apart from that, this movie is just a little boring. And also, speaking of Hammer, I love Sam Rockwell. He's one of my favorite actors of all time, but he kind of came off as a weird combination of a goof and a kind of sinister version of Elon Musk or something like that. And it just became, I didn't care. I couldn't care less. I couldn't care about it, and I couldn't understand what Hammer was supposed to be, a goof or a threat. He tried to be both and it didn't work. Not even Sam Rockwell could pull that off. There are some okay action sequences in this one, but the finale is just what would in the end be a standard Marvel finale. We didn't know it at the time, but in hindsight it kind of is this, yeah, it's kind of okay. The Monaco thing is the thing that actually sets this movie apart from many of the other ones, because it is so impactful and it is so cool. The idea of Whiplash is much cooler than, you know, the actual character, what he would become, because he's so sidelined. And also we have all of these sequences when Tony Stark is trying to improve himself and sitting on this donut and moping and doping, and you know, it's not that interesting. Now this is not a bad movie. It's a pretty mediocre movie in my opinion. It's probably too much studio interference, and there is probably too much of a we have to nail all these points because we need people to know that the Avengers are coming. Now I understand why they did that, and I liked all the Easter eggs that they have that you know, the hardcore fans could take a look at. Oh, he's using the Captain America's shield to, you know, stagger up this thing where he's gonna do his impossibly weird, you know, super technology that's gonna power up his suit and what have you. And that's fine, I guess. In the end, I think that Iron Man 2 is an okay, entertaining, pretty forgettable comic book movie with some pretty huge names, some pretty good actors, and a script that could have possibly worked, but in the end kind of decided not to. It is a serviceable movie, but in my opinion the least good of the MCU movies. If you like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think you will like this better than I did. If you really love Iron Man, I think you can find a lot of stuff you liked in here, but I didn't really do that, mainly because it was not as much Iron Man shenanigans, and he was not as being as cool and carefree as he was in the first one. And even though this movie has a better finale than the first one, the character didn't feel like he had evolved. He had devolved, rather. If you really don't like comic book movies, I see no reason why you should see this movie whatsoever. It's a pretty lame comic book movie and an underwhelming sequel to that matter. Iron Man 2 is an ever so slightly mediocre movie. It gets 52 points. It is an entertaining nonsense movie with some great sequences spliced in with some pretty lame and pretty lengthy sequences that nothing happens. There is a lot of pacing issues with this one. I think it is not a bad movie. It's not a terrible movie, but it's just a little bit of a shoulder shrug. So that was Iron Man 2. I'll see you next time from, well, so-and-so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.